We just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to discuss and review the first episode of The Leftovers, Season 1, new HBO show. Tonight was the pilot episode. A little over an hour, about an hour and 12 minutes it ran. And it was a very, very interesting opening episode. You know, when I watch a show, usually I'll go in and I never expect the first several to 5 episodes to really be too captivating, because sometimes a show takes time to take off. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a prime example. A lot of people gave up on that show just around the time it started to get really good. The Fringe is another example. There's another show I really enjoyed a couple years back. That show as well took a long time to get off the ground. And there's some shows that are really good that don't. You know, obviously Game of Thrones, the first episode was incredible when Jaime pushes the little Stark brand off the ledge. So this episode had a lot going on in the early going before its, what I want to say, I guess its first big reveal at the end. And then just a really weird shit going on. A lot of weird stuff that I think is definitely going to bring you back, especially me, because it raises questions. So just to let you know, before I get into it, there may be spoilers in this review, but none of them are too groundbreaking. The show just started, so it's just, if you haven't seen the show yet, you might not want to watch this review. So the story basically centers around the small town of Mapleton, 3 years after what's been dubbed in the show as The Departure, okay, which is just another way of saying it was a rapture. But in the show, that's one of the big debates, was it really a rapture? I mean, when you talk about the rapture, you're talking about God taking the good people of Earth and then leaving the shit behind, more or less, in a nutshell. Where in this show, that's a big debate on the outskirts of everything that happens, central to what seems to be the main character, Officer Kevin Garvey. And the debate is, was this really a rapture, considering that some of the people who were taken were not good people? So that's one part of that, and that's a small part of the show right now in terms of what the debate is. But it centers around Officer Garvey, who lives with his daughter Jill, and they're struggling. She's struggling in school. He's struggling to, do his job and continue to go about life like normal, because there's a lot of things that even happened to him. Even though his family did not suffer anyone necessarily leaving on the departure bus, there's some shit going down. In terms of around the town, and the big thing is that there's a struggle in this town between the people who are still trying to heal, some people who the situation is more dire than others. There's this one lady in the show who you find out ends up losing her whole family. She ends up losing her whole family. It was her husband, her 2 kids, I think were like 3 and 6, and they all got taken away. And while there's other people who may have had one person in the family taken. So, and then within all this is a cult called the Guilty Remnant. And this is a group of people who don't talk. They smoke like excessively. They're just all smokers. That's part of one of their practices. And this cult is slowly starting to grow. In this show, there's about 50 members, and their job, it looks like, they look like they're protesting against people trying to move on from what happened. It's like they want people to remember, and they almost do things to provoke others, even though they don't necessarily do anything. They'll stand there, they stare at you, and they smoke. They don't say anything. They hold up signs, but it's like they're the group that is kind of one of the reasons that are holding people back from trying to move on and live their lives. There are people who just don't. Everything's changed. Everything based in this show, everything in the world has changed after this event, and you would expect something. You would expect that. Obviously, it focuses on this town. You have, this parade that goes on that it's supposed to signify trying to start the healing process 3 years after the event took place, and they're doing it on the anniversary. And the Guilty Remnant, they arrive at this parade, and there's a big brawl between, and I don't want to say brawl, because the Guilty Remnant, they don't fight back. They just take all the blows. And then you have Chief Garvey and his people trying to keep the peace. All the while, there's his daughter, who just is really kind of slowly starting to tail downhill. Her schoolwork's not doing well. She's hanging out with the wrong crowd. She's going to these parties where there's like spin the bottle parties going on. And it's just weird stuff. It's just not everyone, or it just looks like no one is doing well. And the politics in the town want to try and move on from that. Guilty Remnant want them to remember, and then everybody in between just has their way of dealing with things. So a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. And between all that, you see certain events go play back, like Kevin's son, who you find out later is in fact his son. He left college. And when he mentions that, they replay. I'm assuming 2 teachers committing suicide, and that's, you could assume from that that's one of the reasons he left school. Kevin seems to have his own demons that we don't quite know what it is. I have a hunch based on a flashback he had. It looked like he was having sex with a woman, but there's no indication whether or not it was his wife or not. And that flashback happened when he's talking to a girl at the bar, and she asked him, "Where were you when it happened?" And it just shows him having sex. But between all that, throughout the show, he's getting these visions and dreams of a stag, of a deer, and this thing, and it'll pop up either when he's sleeping or when he's awake. And there's one part where he wakes up from a dream involving the stag, where he looked like in the dream he hit the stag, and he gets up and the stag's making all this noise, and then he gets up out of the dream and he goes downstairs and his kitchen's a wreck. And when I first saw that, I thought that was him that did it, but there was just too much damage and too much glass. He would have had cuts. So, they make you think that, maybe it's the stag. On top of that, they tell the story of these dogs. All these dogs who actually witness their owners actually disappear, and those dogs who witness this take off and they just go primal. They're kind of on their own. They go independent. They don't really come close to people. And there's this one guy in the town that seems to be hunting them. And in the beginning, you don't really understand why, because they don't seem harmful. They're just kind of wandering around the town, not bothering anybody. At least that's what it appears. And then later, you find out that there is a group of them, because there was a set of twin boys who are friends with Kevin's daughter, Jill, that mentioned that they all pack up together, which would make sense. If you have a bunch of dogs going primal, they hunt in packs. That's an instinct. That is a primal instinct. So Kevin comes along his stag towards the end of the show, and he asks it straight up. He's like, "Were you in my kitchen?" And then next you know, a swarm of dogs come, and they start chasing down the stag, and they catch it. And boy, it was a very, very violent scene. If you like deers and all that shit, you don't want to watch that scene. I mean, and it's not that they show all the blood and guts flying everywhere, but they show enough that you can just tell it was a brutal scene. And here comes the guy, the dog hunter, I'm going to call him now, and he tells Kevin, he's like, "Those are not our dogs anymore." And Kevin sees that. He kind of realizes, wow, these things they could potentially be dangerous. And they start firing off on the dogs. And this is the kind of stuff and there's a lot of other things surrounding this episode. It was a long episode, and I definitely want to watch it a couple more times, because you just kind of, because I'm like, did I miss anything here? I want to make sure I got everything, but overall, I enjoyed it. It was a little slow on the offset. I would say for me, things started picking up during the party with Joe, and then from that point forward, like when she found the dog in her father's trunk, and then they buried the dog, then they spoke about the dogs, and then from there it seemed to start taking off. Then you got to the parade. Things really escalated at the parade, and then the big reveal at the end, which if you saw the show, you know what we're talking about. And I'm not saying it's a super reveal. I don't think you'll drop your jaw. I was a little surprised, but at the same time I wasn't, because you can tell throughout the show they're focusing on Kevin and they're focusing on this person. So it kind of made you think that there was a link there. You just don't know what kind of link it is until at the end you find out, and it's like, holy shit, wow, that's kind of fucked up. And then it puts everything together. You understand now why Kevin, his daughter, his son are all kind of fucked up. Really. So really interesting, very powerful. I think it's got a lot of potential. I'm definitely interested in watching it next week to find out what's going to happen. And now that we know what Kevin's situation is and what he's up against. So I gotta say, I enjoyed the first show. Still a lot to learn, a lot of question marks. Little slow in the outset, but entertaining nonetheless. Definitely keeps you like gear, like, wow, what the fuck is going on? But I like that. I like the fact that in this show there is some powerful moments. There is some mysterious moments. It really kind of combines that really well. Because when I think mystery and stuff like that, I remember I used to think of shows like The Fringe, stuff like that. And then at the same time, it's got that powerful emotion because these are people who have suffered losing their loved ones. And when you think about that, when you think about how that would affect you, like in the very beginning of the show, when the lady loses her baby out of nowhere, man, if you have kids, you feel that pain. You understand how painful that can be. Maybe not to that extent because we've never experienced a rapture or a departure event. But just the thought of losing your child in any way, shape, or form is a dreadful thought. So for it to actually happen, like it did to that lady in the show, it's powerful. So I think it's got a lot of potential. I enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to keep watching it. It's got my attention. I want to see where it goes, and that's it. Anyway, guys, that's it for this review. This is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching ETN. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Nation Facebook page. You're watching ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to discuss and review the first episode of The Leftovers, Season 1, new HBO show. Tonight was the pilot episode. A little over an hour, about an hour and 12 minutes it ran. And it was a very, very interesting opening episode. When I watch a show, usually I'll go in and I never expect the first several to 5 episodes to really be too captivating because sometimes a show takes time to take off. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a prime example. A lot of people gave up on that show just around the time it started to get really good. The Fringe is another example. There's another show I really enjoyed a couple years back. That show as well took a long time to get off the ground. And there's some shows that are really good that don't. Obviously Game of Thrones, the first episode was incredible when Jaime pushes the little Stark brand off the ledge. So this episode had a lot going on in the early going before it's what I want to say, I guess its first big reveal at the end. And then just a really weird shit going on. A lot of weird stuff that I think is definitely going to bring you back, especially me.